Welcome to POG. I'm really glad that you're all here. My name's John Melillo. I'm a member of the POG board. I'm so excited that you're all here for Leanne Brown and Karen Brennan's reading. Thank you, thank you. As you all can see, POG was established in 1996. So, wow, we're coming up on 30 years. There's a lot of people to thank for that. I'm just going to thank right now just who our sponsors are, our co-sponsors are this year. Chax Press, UA English, the Poetry Center, Arizona Quarterly occasionally, and many donors, some of which you are in this room. So thank you all very much for your support and for your help. Of course, yes. Also, each individual audience member here, thank you all for being here and supporting avant-garde experimental art in Tucson. We have 30 years coming up. We also have a chaotic world of, needless to say, funding. So as these things start to disappear, and as we want to continue doing the work that we do, we depend upon all of you that much more. So please help us out if you can, if you're able, either by letting us know about how you can help or giving us some money. We have a website. All those things will be really beneficial to us. So thank you. POG directors who are in the room, will you please raise your hands? So, we're all co-directors, and we're all also here to listen to you. So if you have ideas about the way things could have gone better tonight, or other ideas, or other things that have happened, please be in touch with us and talk to us. If you have good things to say, we also like to hear that. Yeah. Our next reading is going to be on a Zoom reading in April, on April 19th. Joanne Rotalick and Teray Fowler Chapman are going to be reading via Zoom on that day, and that's going to be an earlier start, a 5 p.m. start for folks who are all over the world coming to Tucson virtually. I should also say that welcome all to Wave Archive. This space has been, we've been programming at this space now since September, we being me and another friend of mine, Cecil Ruin. For the most part, we're interested in experimental music and poetry, but we also have had documentary films, lectures, performance art, all sorts of things happen here. So I just want to welcome you all to this space and also invite you to please talk to me if you have other ideas for how we should use this space as a community gathering space. Right? There's many things that we can do together, and this is one of those spaces where we can make those things happen. So be in touch. And thank you all again for being here. You hear me breathing? So I just want to say too, along those lines, that we all have to imagine, I think, new forms of collective action in the face of new forms of attacks on our collectivity. And this is a small part of that. We're all not just individual doom scrollers. We are actually humans in a room together, breathing together, and in order to keep breathing together, I think we have to stick together and stay together. So this is a kind of miniature version of this, but I just want us all to think about what are those collective forms of action that we can make happen together. In thinking about that, we also, of course, always have to think about the history of the place in which we live. And obviously there's a strand of settler colonialism that defines this place. I recently discovered/rediscovered an amazing website called the University of Arizona Land Grant Project, which is a website that maps out the treaties, the documents, the maps, the actual maps, that document the ceding and taking of territory from the indigenous nations that were here in this land before many of us who are here were here. So I encourage you all to check out something like that, to find out more about that history, and also, again, to think about that history as a way of moving forward, as a way of thinking about these forms of new collective action. I think I'm going to end there. And thank you all again for being here. Cynthia Hogue is going to introduce Karen Brennan.
So glad to be here in the fellowship of like-minded souls, artists, intellectuals, and cultural warriors. Yeah, thank you again to POG. So glad to hear Karen and Leanne. My dear honored friend, Karen Brennan. I had to practice this because I kept making myself cry when I talked about Karen. Is one of those writers who is exceptional in every genre in which she writes, which includes early scholarship to award-winning fiction and exquisite poetry, and her moving memoir, Being with Rachel, about her younger daughter's life-altering accident. I'm not sure, I wasn't sure when I wrote this, and because Karen wasn't sure, because we talked, what are you going to read tonight? I don't know. Thanks. So I mentioned the memoir because that is the book she wrote instead of completing the short story collection she published last year, Rabbit in the Moon, the Mexico stories, which lay in the proverbial desk drawer untouched for about 25 years until she picked it up a few years ago to see what she'd been working on when fate interrupted her. Stories drafted and in progress in midlife, full of discovery and adventure, even romance, with all the signature Brennan largesse of vision, scintillant wit, and exquisitely humane empathy for others. There's an openness and humility that shimmers through her prose, written by a woman in midlife on the eve of unexpected tragedy. Rabbit in the Moon was completed, polished, and finished by the woman who survived that tragedy. This is when I start to choke up, since I've known Karen for about 35 years. But that woman was able to look fate in the eye and not blink, or lose her humor, her generosity, or her verve. The writer Joan Silver described this extraordinary book as dreamy and gritty, restless and free, written with a poet's utter attention. So whether she shares new poetry or a story from this gorgeously, luminously eloquent rabbit, I am very sure you're in for a treat. Karen Brennan.
So, I'm so happy to be here. I've never been to Wave Archive, and I think it's a fabulous place. And I thank Cynthia and Charles so much for coming back. When was it you came back? 5 years ago or something? She doesn't remember. They left for a while, and it was a wasteland without them. But now they are back, taking care of our poetry community, and I'm so glad they're here, and I'm so glad that I'm reading for them. And John, what a fabulous place, and you are taking care of our poetry community as well. So anyway, I really didn't know what to read because this is such a troubling time, right? And today there was a wonderful. I didn't go, I will confess, but I watched it on my computer. There was a rally with Bernie and AOC. 20,000 people went. 20,000 people. And AOC got up there and she said, we're community. We've got to make community. And I'm echoing what John said. We are community. We writers, we people, we like-minded, what did you say, cultural warriors. We are we are here. So I just want to express my thanks for all of you. And I hope, I'm going to read some sort of, pieces that I haven't read in public before that are more political. And, I hope I'm among like-minded people, and that nobody will shoot me. Anyway. So the first, I'm going to start with one of those, in fact. And this is, what is this? Is this fiction? Is this a poem? You tell me. Anyway, it's called Dark Math. Mike has 4 guns. Gun number 1 uses 10 bullets. Gun number 2 has 20 rounds. If he shoots 40 people in the next 3 months, how many rounds will he have fired? Mike has been shooting guns for 10 years. He has acquired 5 merits for marksmanship, including a prestigious award for the most on-target hits, 15, in the space of 30 seconds. How many people is he likely to kill in the aforementioned scenario if, for example, 3 are wearing bulletproof jackets and 1 is wearing a bicycle helmet? How many people will die in all if A, 20 are hospitalized, B, 3 are released with minor abrasions, burns, and C, 15 are in intensive care, and D, 10 are dead on the spot? Of those in intensive care, 3 have head wounds, brain mess. 1 has a smashed kidney, and 10 have aorta holes, skilled marksmanship. The last, an elderly woman, received a bullet in her eye that went straight through her skull, circumventing the intricate web of neurons and leaving the spark of synapses humming along. Even her SSRI continued its double-duty maintenance, only to emerge and lodge itself cleanly in an Oldsmobile, where it killed a sweltering dog, the mysterious consequence of which she, the woman, not the dog, is able to sing, whereas before she had been tone deaf. Keeping all this in mind, along with the fact that of the 6 ICU nurses on duty in a space of 24 hours, 2 have bad colds, and 1 has had a bad breakup with a boyfriend and is constantly weeping and or throwing things, what percentage of the 15 gunshot victims in the ICU are likely to recover? Use algorithm attached. Mike has owned gun number 1 for 5 years, gun number 2 for 7 years, and the oldest one, which he inherited from his grandfather, for 20 years. The 4th he purchased online, a semi-automatic, no background check, and it came in the mail in the nicest box. If he has in total received 2 nice boxes with his guns, which guns are likely to have been housed in such a way? If Mike shot 20 people in a mall and 20% survived, how likely is it that Mike himself would have survived? If, on the other hand, Mike were a policeman and shot 20 persons of color, how many survivors would there be? Mike has shot 20 people, of whom 15 have died, 3 are brain injured and reside in facilities. Of the remaining 2, how many are women? If on average, men are killed more than women by 20%, how many persons of color died if Mike was a policeman? If Mike was a policeman and fires his police-issued Glock 17 or whatever, how many persons of color is he likely to shoot in the back if 3 walk away with their hands raised? Of the 150 who died in the past week, how many were persons of color? And how many died on the spot if Mike was a policeman? If Mike was a policeman, how many bullets would he have shot into unarmed persons of color, and how many of those bullets were lethal? If 3 persons of color walked down a street wearing hoodies and sipping iced tea, how many would be shot if Mike encountered them reaching into their pockets for their iPhones? How many iPhones would be smashed, and how many would survive in the pockets of the dead persons of color? Bonus points. If Mike were a psychopathic serial killer and shot 20 people in a movie theater with one of those AR-15s, how many hid under their seats and waited for the end of the movie? And how many children would he kill in a neighboring elementary school playground if Mike were having a bad day? couple of poems. These actually come with images, but, you know, the images aren't important. Just read them and you can, you know, maybe imagine an image. And these are very short. See how short? Short? 30 seconds off.
You need
And
water?
I'm also going to have a drink of water. Where is my water? Oh, here it is. Sorry.
You have? Okay.
Yeah, I got it. Okay. I'm reading these because Leanne, who I'm so honored to be reading with, said that she would like to hear poetry, so I will read a couple of these poems. Mountain. And these were sort of environmental-ish lyric, like, you know, I don't know how to describe them. Mountain. A green hill bisected by thick froth of white, the stars' interpolation. Fuzz and foreplay, low levels in which rocks stuck on a hillside, the occasional vireo cry or shadowed flight foreclosing a Swenson's hawk silent as dust. Eternity versus the dying earth, trail of bighorn sheep and the blonde meadow grasses recently black. Chair. Floating in space, the order and time unfolded and precise, slatted air and grief. If the heart resides, a quotidian interrogation, trailing yellow Palo Verde flowers. The path unfollowed and resting place divulged. Perhaps a cushion, or on its side a painting rising to the clouds, or distant like a bird or dot. This is also about time, she thinks, putting an end to it. Sky. Next in order, the smeared form copied from a book, cash crop, clown hat. I am yours, she says, wondering briefly in the weightless room, the window, dark blue and speculative. Where is everyone? A violet shoe capsized and lost, its rims a little bleak. It happens to be late and all the glossy resentments are swallowed up. I felt it coming on like the way you sometimes feel the rain about to. Then the blood moon riding on the horizon, huge and low in the saddle. Then a gray wound as if pierced with an arrow. And the last one of these is stalks. This actually has a nice image. It's a comb and a bunch of dirt. Stalks. All things upright and lost in a dazzle, a scaffold for the spirit otherwise collapsed and weary. All things upright and stationary and one fold, not to say lonely, utilitarian, friendly. All things upright, including the pin-straight two-leggedness making her slow way inside. Inside the blister where all things upright, where they stand at the ready. Okay. Now, I have no idea when I started. Just, throw a tomato if I go on too long. I don't usually go on too long, but you never know. You're such a good audience. I'm going to read one piece from this book. Now this book, my recently published one that Cynthia spoke about, a lot of the stories are long, and I don't like to read long stories. I don't even like to listen to people's long stories. So I'm going to read one of the shorter stories. And excuse me if you've heard this before, because I did read this story before, but I'm going to read it again. And the thing to say about this story, which might interest some of you who are writers, is that after it was published, I was never really happy with the ending. And after it was published, I thought of the better ending, so I just wrote it in a pen in my book, so it won't be in the regular book. Okay, this is called Gabriel's Chair. I was going to sit, but I won't. Let's say you are going to visit Gabriel, or Gabriel. This is all about Mexico, so I say Gabriel's Chair. Let's say you are going to visit Gabriel. You may want to talk to him or just hang out, look at his paintings, and drink beer. There in his kitchen are 2 chairs. Both are wicker with painted wooden frames. The only difference between them is that one of them is broken. The broken one is not broken in such a way that it is lopsided on the floor and needs a matchbook to set it straight. In fact, if you look at its placement on the floor on the other side of a low table with a little embroidered cloth and a few ashtrays and places for glasses of beer, you would almost be fooled into believing the chair is not broken. But actually the wicker on the chair has quite obviously shredded, and so if you sit on it, which you must inevitably, because this is the chair you are offered, one half of your ass will fall through almost to the floor, and the other half will rest upon what is left of the wicker and the frame itself, so that you can actually sit on this chair for a short while, but you will not be comfortable. Thus I am calling this story Gabrielle's Chair. Perhaps this story also has to do with a deeper level of discomfort in Gabrielle's presence. So there you are sitting on Gabrielle's chair. Gabrielle is sitting across from you in the good chair and he is laughing. Whether he is laughing because he can see the half of your ass falling through the chair, or because he can see you struggling to maintain a look of comfort and ease despite your half an ass falling through to the floor, or whether he is laughing because he is on the good chair and you're not, is not clear to you. When Gabrielle laughs, he shows his teeth and he crinkles his eyes. But Gabrielle's laugh is not a full laugh. It is not the laugh of one who is accustomed to laughing a lot and heartily. There is a little strain to it, as if the laugh had to struggle against a contradictory impulse, perhaps a more instinctive urge to shout angrily. Sorry. You are conversing about poetry. Poetry, says Gabrielle, is not the universal language. Painting is. You disagree. There is no universal language, you say. Poetry and painting each have their own sets of problems. Do you want some more beer? Asks Gabrielle. He pours from the quart bottle of Corona, and what you get is mostly foam. It's okay, you say, because you weren't planning on drinking much with Gabrielle this afternoon. For one thing, it's hot today, and in his little room it's even hotter than outside because Gabrielle has closed the curtains so the light won't hit his eyes. The foam is fine, you say. That's not a real beer, says Gabrielle, with a touch of scorn. In a way, you've come to admire Gabrielle's scorn. It hits you flat in the stomach every time, bullseye. It is therefore an exemplary scorn, perfectly conceived and perfectly aimed. Meanwhile, your ass is beginning to feel more or less captured in the frame of the wicker chair. You have the urge to get up and go outside. You want to wander around, you tell Gabrielle. I get my best ideas wandering, you say. You are Wander Woman, he says. And then he laughs at his jokes. Have you ever noticed you are the one who laughs the hardest at your jokes, you ask Gabrielle. He laughs with his mouth wide open so that he actually makes a sound like ha ha ha. Drink some rum with me, he says. But you need to paint, you say. Don't tell me what I need to do, he says. Your conversations with Gabrielle often take this odd turn. Whether you stay or go, you are entangled in complications. Be careful of your language, he says. Then it occurs to you that Gabrielle has this chair for just this purpose, to encourage people to cut their visit short. Even though it is pulled so cozily up to the little table and seems, except for the damaged seat, to be so appealing, facing the other chair in an inviting way and within easy reach of the table with its embroidered cloth and the glasses of beer and the seashell ashtray. I must fix that chair someday, says Gabrielle absently when you stand up. Here is the point I was trying to make, says Gabrielle. The people in Chiapas all have eyes, but not all of them can read. True, you say, but do they have eyes for Jackson Pollock? Do they have eyes for Mark Rothko? All art exists in an historical context, you say. You feel you are right, and your righteousness gives your voice a certain inflection that you find distressing. You've heard it before in the voices of others, and here it is in your voice. I'm not saying you don't have a point, you say. I'm a little hungry, you say. Do you happen to have any crackers or bread? Nada, says Gabrielle. But I have rum. Rum isn't what I'm thinking about right now, you say. Why not, says Gabrielle. Gabrielle has 2 chairs, one broken, one small table, one square embroidered cloth, a stove, no fridge, a mattress with a gray blanket, a TV, several easels, many paintings and paint cans and brushes and tubes of paint. He has a quart of Corona. He has 2 glasses, a shelf or an ashtray, a painted stone on his wall, a photo of his mother, a terrace covered with plants, geraniums, peppers, and beans, a rooftop over the terrace that you can climb to on a little ladder. He has a quart of rum, but no Coke, no cigarettes, no TV, no washing machine and dryer, no fridge, no stereo, no closets, no bathtub, no crackers, no bread. It's impossible to translate a poem, he announces. Prose is different, he says. You can get to the meaning in prose. How so, you say? The Corona, as warm as it is strangely refreshing, and you've begun to feel relaxed and convivial. You don't want to argue this question of language with Gabrielle, but it seems unavoidable. There is a bird shrieking at the window, and around your head a mean-looking wasp has begun to circle. I'm allergic to those things, you say, referring to the wasp. Gabrielle says, there is no way to get close to the meaning of a poem in another language. It has to be a different poem, and so the original is always lost. In some sense, you agree the original is lost. But if it's a good translation, the spirit, the heart of the poem is conveyed. I like that new painting, by the way, you add, because while you've been talking to Gabrielle, you've been looking over his head at his latest painting of a naked woman seated on a very comfortable-looking gold beanbag chair with her legs open, proudly displaying her crotch. What you like most about this painting is the checkered floor background, which has little pieces of the sky in each square. You also admire the way he's drawn in the women's genitalia with great care and delicacy. You tell him this. Genitalia, he says, laughing very hard. Well, you say, what should I say? It's so scientific, he says. Why don't you just say pussy? Whatever, you say. Now you have made me lose a very important point I was making, he says. You have distracted me. I thought I was the one making the very important point, you say. No, he says, I was about to say something very, very important, and now I've lost my train of thought. Well, you say I should be going, because now that you've sat down on the chair again, your ass is squeezing out of the bottom in what you are sure must be a very obscene manner, and you think it's time for your wandering around and thinking. Also, you have a long walk home, up an irregular stone staircase that has 100 stairs, next to the oldest iglesia in the city, where the bells sound like pots and pans instead of bells. You don't have to go, he says. We could drink rum. We could drink rum, you agree, but we have no Coke. Gabrielle has no Coke and no condoms. You know this from experience. He thinks you should bring the condoms, but you have no condoms either. You have no idea where to buy condoms in this city or how to say condoms in his language. There are times when you fool yourself into thinking you know how to speak his language, and at those times you string all the words you know together and try to force your meaning into them. But Gabrielle interrupts. Stop! I don't understand one word you are saying. Speak in English, please, and speak clearly and precisely, because remember, English is not my first language. Gabrielle derives a certain pleasure in these admonitions, but he has a point nonetheless, you feel. Your Spanish is lousy, and the idea of buying condoms should probably be abandoned. Anyway, you're not planning to have sex with Gabrielle anymore. His passionate face, his eyes that crinkle at the sides, his soft hands with their skin like silk, his beautiful brown body and its shadows and arches and planes and treacheries are no longer of interest. You would rather sit on his broken chair and watch him laugh at you. Ha, ha, ha. Maybe you will use his laughter in this story and you will have the last laugh. Therefore, Gabriel's chair will be symbolic of his lack of hospitality, his enjoyment of your discomfort, his need to put you off balance so that he can experience a small measure of superiority at your expense. Communication is always hard, you say, in any language, painting or poetry or English or Spanish. Yes, he says, I agree with you. Finally, I agree with you. Then he leans back in his chair and together you watch the sunlight fill the curtains and slide over the geranium leaves on the windowsill. There are no blooms. They have lost their hearts, says Gabrielle, referring to the geraniums. At this point in time, you tell Gabrielle, I myself have a cold heart. This is a lie, but you feel you need protection from Gabrielle. You feel if you say the words, they will come true. Ha, ha, ha. Can I read one more thing? Or?
Just keep going. Just keep going.
I don't know. I didn't look at the time.
2 minutes.
22 minutes? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, because I was going to read a longer piece, and now I know not to. I will wind up with another poem, I guess. Yeah. This is called Tucson Dry Mouth. This is called 10 Miniatures for an Imaginary Season. 1, the house downcasted in the snow enthralled her velvet blinds. 2, the taper lit with paper, alight the nerve, the glass, the mind. 3, the water shook, the body stilled, the shaded shade. 4, as if the frolic stopped and stopping thought to think. 5, where is the candle and its grace, the liberated frame? 6, where is the torrent and the speed, the darling current running through? 7, what we thought was true, of real converted to a ghost, more than a cover-up. 8, more than mercy that floated down, more than nevermore. 9, no philosophical indictments, no indications from the sky or catalogs of weather. 10, or candles, or woolen sweaters, or gesso to prepare our souls. Thank you.
Mostly with words stolen from Leanne Brown. A particular introduction she wrote for the 25th year anniversary of Tender Buttons and the publication of the Tender Buttons Omnibus. Which that must be approaching like 35 years now. So most of this is cribbed entirely from that, but some of it I twisted a little bit and added something to or took something away from. So the work that I love and am inspired by and need to see in the world. To make a nest for one's own and others' poetry, an ongoing, intertwining act. Tender buttons. To tend her buttons is to tend the buttons of books. Books as multifaceted objects, written from many angles, unfolding in different ways each time we read them, reimagining and pushing envelopes of form and content, content and form. Multiplicity. The poem is the subversion of duality. The poem is the third term where multiplicity can exist, or a non-term where term is too much of a definition. Aspire to write in ways never before imagined. Very early poem of Leanne Brown when she was in high school. Words weren't enough for her. She often made high cat cries and danced hard on the blue carpet, wanting to express the inexpressible. Take the lid off that repression or oppression that comes from seeing everything as a dualism. Sometimes my mind works in straightforward ways, and sometimes like this. The nighttime activity, the erotics of writing after and before the other kind of button tending, as in tending her nether double buttons and again writing. So connections were surfacing with the new way of writing I saw as multiple and expressing my mode, I mean my mind, which was another way women used writing, how women used writing to say all sides of a thing, of a feeling, all sides of the ways to approach like a flock of birds, like an accordion form which rejects closure. The original logo for Tender Buttons Press, drawn by Joe Brainerd, includes 10 buttons on a jacket, plus the several buttons or flowers coming out of the neck of that frock in the place of a head. A wild scene, a wild logo, an outfit of many folds and pleats, an allusion to labial flowers and to pansies in every sense, a mixing of genders not unlike Irigaray's this sex which is not one or non-existent, not one side of a duality. The last poem of Leanne Brown's Polymers is titled Crush. Reinvent love. Can we reinvent love? Why reinvent love? I cannot imagine the landscape of contemporary poetry without Leanne Brown, without her wide-ranging imagination and her deep generosity, without her tender buttons, without her astounding care for what may happen in language, for who it may happen with, for why it matters. Leanne Brown reinvents love. She reinvents poetry. Please welcome Leanne Brown.
I really love seeing your community and the press, the checks, and all the intertwining of your many books you've done. And I love reading out loud and seeing people's faces. That's why I know that people really heard the poem. I love having a book, but I love speaking and singing my poems. So thank you for being here. And I'm just going to start in some things I selected for tonight. This is a collaboration with Philip Good and Bernadette Mayer. When I was writing, I've been writing a lot of sonnets, sort of free-form sonnets, and this is sort of a triple sonnet. Reading the mind of a poet. Mind reading a poet. We don't mind just a couple lines at a time. That's all it takes to examine the shadow spider lamp. There's wriggly things all over everywhere, even if you say wormy, but that's not spidery or flavorful. They come to no conclusion, ever the exploding, non-concluding brain. 8 fancy fruit tarts with enjambment. What if we just open the sonnet up in the middle, like this? Is it enough? Or what if a long poem went down the middle, then on either side with the triangle pointing left and right, whatever east and west, or perhaps as windy as the Tassawassa Creek, down the Cohoes Falls, around the Hudson, or what about projected across the page? But that's been done. A creek projected across a page when people don't cohere. If in the middle there's a hammer resting on a person, who'll go to bed first and who next? Who will be the unicorn and who will be the turtle? But there's no there between the pages. It's hard to write about love, you said, when all you have is a device. A little snow fell on my device. Twice. Second, I became so fecund, I dropped my hat. Then third, I turned into a fjord. And fourth, my worth fell way up north, feeling snowy along line drawings, seen from above, flying around, laughing with a poet dreaming about oysters on sidewalks. Does Fort Worth have a Pearl Street necklace, polka-dotted across the seined arms of stars? Grids of color are sometimes the answer to what ails you in terms of internment. In terms of endearment, you become a mushroom, donated to the edibles of your neighborhood like a mad woman who feels no migraine. A headache is not an oyster,
nor is it a tile. A person who has a name like Zola as being outstanding in a field full of ninnies, brewing cup full, finding it covered with bird feathers. So every time I read that, I see something different in it, but I had an image of printing that on a scarf or something like that. And here's another little collaboration I just did with Phil. I urge people to do collaborations with your friends, just even if it's just every other line, or I think it's a really good way to become a third mind. Psychic Ringa, Ringa being I saw these haiku down the main street we were walking, like the Japanese form that kind of unfolds. Psychic Ringa. I'm not ready to be psychic with you, but let's see how it turns out. We can send the light outside. The window will reflect into things that go bump in the night that give me such a terrible fright. People look behind themselves, brassy sounds reverb brightly. I have no boundaries, no robins, no cardinals, scarlet tanagers, a bright bird feeder baffler, every flavor everywhere, affording grace as suggested by flowering forever again. Hummingbirds tip the blossoms, internal sunshine moves onward. And I've been thinking a lot about my dad because he just passed recently. And I found this thing, I just sort of searched the word dad, and I was coming up with some things, so I might read a few things from, there's also a book about Charlotte, and I'm going to dedicate some of those to Norma, because we grew up, she's the person in the room I've known the very longest. We went to high school, Norma Poplin and I went to high school in Charlotte, North Carolina at Providence Day School. We were the weirdos. We were the artists, and then we got made fun of, and then we escaped and we went to other places. And now I get to see her only every once in a while. I'm so glad to be here with you. And I went to New York, she went here. And so this is a little prose poem. On the Street Where You Live. That's a song. It was one of the songs of my parents. On the street where you live. That one. I think of my mom scoping out my dad's house before they got married and adopting the song on the street where you live as their song as a way to explain the thrill she felt being with him. I also remember she told me she was on board a ship with her friend Mary Rizzi on the way to Europe, and they had a costume contest where that she put a little sailor doll in her hat and paraded around to the song, "Gonna wash that man right out of my hair," with shampoo and soap suds. When we watched The King and I together, Mother loved the sequences where the king was asking the Mary Martin character to educate him in English manners. Then he realized that napkins had been forgotten in the place setting for the royal banquet, and he personally went around throwing napkins into everyone's laps, which of course was more gauche than having forgotten them in the first place, but it was too late. So all these little memories are flooding back to me. And I'm going to read from this book here a little bit. This is Crowns of Charlotte. I wrote a trilogy for North Carolina. I'm writing one. I've only done 2 of the books, but this is the Charlotte one. And a lot of times I redo hymns and things. So this is, you might recognize the hymn, "A Mighty Fortress is Our God." I thought that was too warlike, so I rewrote it. So this is Transformation Hymn. Almighty fortresses, open your doors. All swords to plowshares beaten. Why do our leaders lead us to wars? All vengeful hatred eaten. For still our ancient foe within us each doth grow. Our need this hour is great. Disarm this cruel fate. Our words of love undo it. called Acoustic Winter. If the year ends a plural spiral, may it be so what a year is. If the winter begins again here in the longest, darkest place of the shortest, bluest day, we play the stillness deep into the night song beside all our sleeping family breaths. Of the 5 friends I'm holding, who will last the winter in their earthly spiral, in their spring trajectory, move to lovely summer, one more lovely summer, or further time to foil days whirl into nights. I'm moved to see my parents, the ones who have borne me out, have borne me up. I'm moved to be with my sister and her local love, her ones. I'm moved to join the circle. I am already in my kith. Acoustic winter sings a summer, a way to stay awake as the light brings back its basket, its halo, its wreath of line and berries. Pine hurries to the wind again. Night is here, it is most clear. Sound across the zones a weave. I sing this song again for winter. May Venus never sever her move across the sun to come upon the next transit, the next music. In time to finger to find a new way to unwind skeins of sound in mind. Among us, we are each other's mothers, sisters, brothers, fathers once in camps or encamped behind wires. War is over, I thought, forever, as I blew my cornet in suburban backyard, age 12, 1975, drew peace sign and dove. No way to recover someone so close to those close to me, irrevocably gone in Vietnam. Unthinkable, unthinkable to release us from one war only to tie us to another and another. I had faith in the world. World, why are you still doing all this killing? How can 7,000 or is it over 70,000 young Iraqi men be bulldozed alive under the burning sands of Iraq? The war comes home. Why are people afraid to open front doors, children to roam around? We have to start again. A poet said to me. She was very tired, yet went on to rest, create again a place to hold complex thought enmeshed in words, race, space, place for party-colored people, new flavors raining down upon definition. The among us, become us, tribal leaders ensconced, story quilts of escape, halfway to the mountains, red cord and chicken foot, round wrists, seeds sewn into clothes. Calor wouldn't go into the house our church gave her family because a bird spirit trapped inside battled windows with her wings. No written language. Everything is alive. See the bondages around us daily. Next door in slave time, still cross town. All children are our children, growing up and living. All now our parents. Our work, our word, our world. This one, my dad figures in there. I like to do little anecdote poems. This really happened. Dive bomb. And there's a little. Have you seen this poem? There's on ModPo. They do those little ModPo minutes where they talk about one poem at the University of Pennsylvania. There's a huge archive of readings and things that Al Philrice and 50,000 other people subscribe to, but they did. This is a poem that they talked about, and I love it because there's some that I sort of read all the time, and this one I had neglected a little bit, and he sort of teased some things out of it. I think it's appropriate for now. But dive bomb. I stop and save a box turtle from the middle of Republican Church Road. Then I hit a flash of bluebird with my windshield a few miles later. On the radio, John Stewart reports on the formation of the Congressional Softball League, in which teams are paired such that there's a good chance that each team could win at least once. So the Republicans form a splinter group saying, these rules punish the strong and reward the weak. This fine June morning, the deer my dad reports dead at the side of the road is tended to by vultures. Strange. Okay. Okay. What else do I want to share from this one? Handmade in America. My parents' hands held my fingers on either side as I walked upstairs. My mother's hands arranged the flowers. My father's hands clip out the news and send it to me in the mail. An intertextual braille. I learned from him, wiry hand, left hand writing at the bottom of the page. Mom's lofty spirals, an earthly spiritual pair. In a child's face we trace back the fibered scripts the ancestors pass. Through her form, one by one per hour, morphology's power. Blink, or you will miss your grandmother or great-grand-uncle's sire shifting there beneath her hair. So that was like when I had a child and you see all the ancestors in their face, every day different. Okay, there was one. Oh yeah, this is another, just like walking down this main street in Charlotte with my dad. Just like there's a few notes. I haven't read it in a while. It's called Yellow Canary Cafe. He told me that they used to be downtown. To eat, to eat. He said that's what it said. The Canary Cafe, it had a neon sign that said, to eat, to eat. Yellow Canary Cafe. To eat in neon. When you can study what you like, you can go to town. Why study history? Like Foucault, for me, it's in the daily details. That Agnes Lee thought SS deducted from her paycheck meant Sunday school rather than Social Security or something darker. Shows the centrality of church to her life as social milieu, governance, and livelihood. Lengthening of dresses, yard work, menus, and things of beauty. Noted haiku-like, maple tree, make her live for me. In her line-a-day diary, where huge gaps of days point to the vast business of caring for one, then two babies, or the book misplaced, or perhaps a vast sorrow unable to be expressed in words. So I'm going to read this bunch. I don't want to read too long either, but my computer says it's 11:24. I guess the New York Times. Okay. So I've been, like I said, writing these sort of improvisational sonnets, and I think of sonnets being sung because they're like sonetta, like little sounds. So I've been playing around with that. So licence sonnet. It's like I've been looking up all the kinds of love. So licence. Look up kinds of love to see which one you have done to me, and find that unknowability increases my desire to wait and see. Now, how it sustains, and I'm free. Crushed storm passed over me, I can be electricity. Who am I kidding? Recapitulation, every absorptive Marlowe Thomas moment blobs out in mercury rain. In windows a pop skyscraper mind. All I mean is I'm still carving my groove. The groove is in the heart. A song apart. This is it's called The Once and Future King, W-A-N-T-S, The Once and Future King. I brought my fertile body to the family. As projectionist of the highest caliber, I leave a small corner of the room unpainted, so as to say it's still unfinished. Here's to Diana Prima, who told me long ago when I was stuck of how Robert Duncan would write more of the same kinds of poems across books. I did, in fact, and am writing poems growing like new vines out of seeds from long ago. Poems of cats in spring, more complex, tell all tall poppies pick themselves back up even when cut down. Their blossoming sore as a stain. Hello out there, insert your name here. I knit a hole of not so tiny imperfections in the bowl of this poem so you can read it and wonder why. This is called, let's see which one I'll do next. This is what we say, some people say poem like this in the South. Our family didn't so much, but poem, P-O-I-M, poem. I speak of love and its infinitude, all plenitude as well as more finite needs to know. It all morphs in threat of death. Love is strong as death, proclaimed the Brownian romantic tower. Only years later do I realize that Shakespeare, who wrote that in a sonnet in his loud and quiet music, sublunary stanzas, exploding outwards after smoldering, if they still do what I think they will, polysyllabant pokeberry stems of words, language with 5 petals of pickled ginger. I once ate lamb tongues in an Iraqi restaurant and hope the arc of the sonnet was not wasted on me sublingually. Let's see. Some of them I just, Bernadette Mayer said just to get a Shakespeare sonnet, just rewrite it in your own language. So this is that's one of the impetuses for this collection. But this is sonnet 117 redone. Stop accusing me that I've been chicken with payback for Desert Storm. Dissed on your best girls, whereby all bondages do tie me up. That I have frequently exchanged unknown fluids and wasted away my own. I've hoisted ass to ferry across sweet options to flee from you who one time did me suck. So book me, my mulishness and second down on jiggers of 100 proof sunshine gather. Bring me up to your mouth, down your pout. Don't shoot me up with your new wake of hate. I testify, yes, in courts of love, my appealing constant apples prove. I guess I should read the Shakespeare with it, but I don't have that right now. But, let's see. Okay. And this is the other one that I pulled out. I've been working on these sonnets for a really long time. So this is written on, I think it was my dad's 80th birthday or something. Open, close, envelope sonnet. So it was written on the back of an envelope. As time goes by, minute by minute, I categorically reject closure. Yet again, the signs of morning pop out anew. Everything's coming in roses, categorically blue. The signs speak to you, languages unknown. The poem as it plays in your head and as it's written on an envelope are 2 different things. Biscuits not yet done, strawberries in the fridge, Sunday, November already, yesterday, calendar, my father's birthday. I won't see him again for a month, such a sweet one. Another man in a cafe looks up terrified from the front of the Times. What time is it?
Not enough.
Okay. All right. Oh yeah, here's a new one I wrote. I've been studying, if you want a good poetry workshop online, I highly recommend looking up Sophia Dolan's Generative Poetry Workshop. I started doing them during the pandemic. I love the way she teaches poetry. She always has one poem, and it's an hour, and it's online, and you read the one poem, and it's very basic, but she always gets these great poems. So and then she's really good at the prompts and the experiments. But I think this was she asked everybody to write a poem to the muse. I don't know, I can't remember what poem you read first, but this is my muse poem for her workshop. Muse, I, guilty, feel you are my muse, and I wonder if you like this. I saw you by the window, across the room from the closet that held the tape recorder, which was actually in another place, but I felt it was there when you told me. I saw you by the screen, where the moths came in, even in the city, all your long scars tumbled out, all your nerves on fire. I was powdering myself, looking closely and hiding. I was in awe of your typewriter, Ukrainian tablecloth. I feel hot writing this. It's November and it's not supposed to be this way. And soon it will not be. We are alive. You are too, even though I can't see you, especially you. And I probably should end on a song because it seems to work. But oh, I had another new one. This is maybe I just sing it and see what happens. This is I like to get assignments. Barry Schwabsky and Carol Simansky are doing this project. They asked all poets to write a poem for each letter of the alphabet. So they gave me E. So this is my E poem. Then they're going to put them on canvases in a certain typeface at a big gallery show, I guess, in New York. But this is called Harp E. Harp E. Harpy. 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 Harpy as bright. Harper and stringed harpy. Aeolian, eternally evanescent, erased and ever eviscerated. Emergent and emergency on the fly of agaric eggplant. Rimbaud saw you as white. Bernadette saw you green. I think you blue, ecru, or emu. I emphatic, empathetic, the sound of ecstatic, ecstatrix, ecstatrix, E. Sung in high pitch, E. Running down the corridor, picture me holding a giant blue E. In the garden, in the snow, enough E's. We need all your E's. Everyone has their own inner synesthesia. After you read this question, after you hear this question, while you're hearing this question, close your eyes. Close your eyes for as long as it takes to see what color is your E. Thank you so much for listening.
I like all the singing.
I want to know more about the rabbit in the moon. Is that because I was born in
That's a
Japan and I
story.
learned about the rabbit in the moon.
Yeah,
The
but they have an Aztec thing too. It's the rabbit in the moon, and this is about it's a Mexico thing. So I know they have one in Japan, but in Mexico there is an Aztec legend where the rabbit exists in the moon. I think it's longer than that. I can't remember it all. I think the epigraph of the book actually. I talk about it. It's found in one of those old parchment. So yeah, I love all the singing. It inspired me. Yeah.
You have a singing career.
I do. I sing jazz, but I never make all my things. Yeah.
Oh, you
Yeah,
gotta do
right.
it.
Yeah. No, it's fabulous. And besides all that, I'm listening to the words, and the words themselves are, I can see
You
where
want
your
us to
press
stand
is
up here?
called. I can see why your press is called Tender Buttons, because they're very Steinian.
Stand up here.
All the punning and Steinian,
Okay.
kind of wordplay and rhyme and fun, so it was wonderful, really inspiring. That's what's reading.
Yeah, but I encourage you to think about, like if you have certain tunes you love, like just to just, as I'm sure you sing them all day long when you go around and like just start to hear new words to it. That's how I started with just doing hymns, like the hymn I do.
No, I wanted to
But
ask you
then
that.
do more improv, like just start playing.
I mean, do you make them up on the spot, your tunes, or do you just have a tune in your head already for the music, for the words?
Well, that was the hymn I did. I did a lot of hymns and ballads and I used old tunes that I really liked.
Right. No, the hymn I
Yeah, but
understand.
then I just started making them up.
Yeah.
Because I was inspired by people like Julie Patton. I think some of y'all know her work. And I have a little pamphlet of hers over there on the table, the flower poem that I just published, and I'm going to publish more of her work. But she's really good at improvisation on the spot. So I've said a lot of that is inspired by people like her that can do that.
And so you improv tonight the tunes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
I try not to like. Sometimes I get like on these two.
I'm
notes,
afraid
I'm like,
mine
I
would
gotta
all
go somewhere
sound
else.
the same.
Yeah.
I'm afraid mine would all sound the same. I get into a groove.
But that's okay, because if you just
Yeah.
you can just stay on
You
the
just do your
two
move.
notes, and
Yeah.
because that you can just intone it like some ancient
No,
monk
it's
or something.
wonderful.
Then it'll eventually change.
Yeah.
Because your brain
You're
will let
chanting.
it go
I mean, it's
somewhere
great.
else.
It's great for the heart chakra. Great for the heart chakra.
Great for the heart chakra. Yeah, I think that the chakra stuff is really good. Yeah, if you intone that kind of
Yeah.
That's a
I
really
love
good
it.
place to get
Yeah.
some of your
Yeah.
variation in tones.
And what was the name? I think everybody would like to hear it again of the workshop that you.
Oh, the
So
Sophia
generative.
Dolan,
Sophia Dolan. Write
D-A-H-L-I-N.
that
If you look
down.
on her website. She has a book called Natch, N-A-T-C-H, from City Lights. I think she's like in her 30s, and really good poet, and but she's an amazing teacher.
Yeah. That's fun. That sounds
You
like
just go to her
fun.
website and it says workshops, and it's generative, and she does it in these it's either 5 to 8 weeks, and there's a new one starting right soon.
Oh,
And,
really?
Yeah,
That's
it's
great.
like we see each other online too. I mean, I'm sure you'll have stuff here too.
We did well, Cynthia was part of it. In the pandemic it started and it's still going on daily.
Wow.
I mean, not everybody comes every day, but it's still being held.
You meet
daily.
and you talk about.
We
you write
don't.
together?
We
No,
basically
it's generative.
it's words. We come up with words. We leave our computers for 20 minutes.
That's cool.
We write. We come back and we read to each
Sure.
other. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
I was going to ask along these lines about what was the ways in which the collaborative poems worked? Like what was the process for collaborating together? Did you trade lines? Were you in the same room? Those kinds of
The
questions.
Bernadette and Phil one, she would.
Yeah.
I done earlier collaborations with her. Just basically just like we would just alternate lines. And
Right.
we had she was using a typewriter a lot because after she had her cerebral hemorrhage, she couldn't write longhand anymore. So she would just say instead of writing, she was typing.
Uh-huh.
We just had the typewriter, and then we kept going to the typewriter. And so I have the original type poem, and it's pretty basic like that. Just going back and forth. But I've used other modes like exquisite corpse, where you fold the paper down and
yeah.
just have a word sticking out, and then you can
that's
unfold it and you get something even crazier.
Cynthia,
Mine just does that anyway. So.
Cynthia and I just did a collaboration.
Yeah.
That and I was I didn't think I was in the mood to do this at all, So we email and I go, okay, well, I write something, and we just had it accepted.
Yeah.
Two long
It
pieces.
was around the theme of care and carefulness
Mhm.
for the Black Earth Institute.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, Karen was all
Karen.
resistant, and I was earnest. I was so earnest.
And I was like, I don't believe in care. I mean, nobody cares.
So really, it was counterpoint. And at the end, I said to Karen, we have not followed their guidelines. It doesn't look like we did anything they're looking for, but they just were open to.
Oh, there was a call for work about care.
Yeah.
So what happened? Did you
They
send it?
took.
Good.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
Well, the best line in it was the Dalai Lama,
Yeah.
who says,
That was the epigram.
I care about caring.
Yeah.
A great line.
That
We
reminds-
should all take into ourselves, really.
I mean, that reminds me of the what I was trying to think of just now, because like I'm on my way to the AWP with this huge conference of thousands of people, and it's sort of daunting to do it when
You're a
like,
hero.
well,
I resist
you
it.
know, like I think one thing that's painful to me is that all these like young poets will come up to my table and they'll be like, they'll want to see these amazing books, but they want to be published. And I was like, I can't really give them what they want because it's like I only have a very small output, you know. And I was like, but I wanted them to feel included. And I told my friend Lynn Sachs, who's going to be at the table with me, she's like, well, maybe we could do a reading on like gather people and say, we'll meet later in the summer. So we need a focus. So the collaborative call we're crafting right now is, as you know, there's all these list of words that like are discouraged words.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
include, like women and
That
sense of
should
belonging,
totally
and
be
LGBTQ,
elevated.
Yeah.
you know, all these
I
different
think
things.
women is on the list twice.
Women, yeah.
Yeah, wow.
And equality.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
right.
Science
Diversity.
So like
Yeah.
one of the
Diversity
Brennan
finds
Mayer
this.
experiment says like get a certain group of words and then only write the poems
Yeah,
using
those
those
words are
words. And I was
great.
like, let's just ask people to use the words, encouraging words. I said we're going to call it coraggio. Like you have the courage to use the words, you know. So that's the new call for. We're going to do that. So if anybody wants to be in that,
Yeah.
sign up. Let's do it. Like I get your email. We'll like write your poem and then send it to tenderbuttonspress@gmail.com. I mean we'll have a we'll have a reading. We can read it to each other. And everybody can print broadsides and put them around. You know, like those guys said, I call it publicating. Like how do you publicate your work? How do you give it to
Amplify.
people
Yeah.
as presents? You know.
I love when you were doing the E poem,
Uh-huh.
and I was thinking about what you said about, totally rejecting closure. Because there were several places in the poem where I thought, oh, that could be a close, but then every closure is an opening, and something else would come out. Especially when you climb the light.
I thought that might be it.
Yeah, I thought that might be it, but then something else emerges.
That's funny because there was actually like 4 more lines on that poem. And then I always try to edit stuff and I'm not very good at it. But then I put what color is your E as the last. But then it says let it cycle through the spectrum, longing for all the colors, belonging to them. That was the thing about the forbidden words because belonging. I was trying to think of how do you say belonging for these different all the colors of people and vibrations of light and everything, like the weave, like you're talking about the community. So belonging to them in your mind's eye, the letter I, mind your T's and Q's. Took the T and the Q off the Stonewall
I know they did.
website, the
Oh, God,
National
that broke my
Park.
heart. Yeah.
And so I like when I heard that I stayed up all night. I was making T's and Q's to take down there, and there was a big rally. Mind your T's and Q's plus E's. They and we belong everywhere. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's
So
great.
you can keep going. So everybody can write other alphabet poems too. Yeah. What else? Well, whoops. Oh, I'm just trying to. I don't want to be in front of you.
Oh, well, I mean.
I'll go back to my chair.
Choreography.
Any more?
Are we done?
I have a question about the line you read, Leanne, about Diane DeCrema saying
Oh, yeah.
something about
It was a little
smelling
quick.
like someone.
Oh, I was trying to figure out my first book. I was trying to finish what became Polyverse, and I was having trouble knowing if it was finished or not. And she said, and I said, and I didn't want to end because I was like, what if I write more poems like that one? Like I'm not done with that. And she's like, Robert Duncan wrote like Structure of Rhyme 6 and then Structure of Rhyme 16, like later in his life, and they cross different books. So like you can keep going with your practice. Like I guess like Walt Whitman, Leaves of Grass, you can just write this one long poem your whole life, you know. But you don't want to say the same thing. But it can have multiple parts, you know. It can recur. You can go back into themes or projects or series.
But you also said something about how you go back to earlier work and it keeps flowering on. And I think that's so true. And I think that's also true. I know reading feeds writing. And sometimes it's not the reading I'm doing today. I'll find myself doing some with reading I was doing 30 years ago. You know, and it keeps coming in.
Like you see things differently.
Yeah.
That's what's great about poetry. I feel like there's a closure.
Closure.
Closure. Everybody drink water.
Yeah, thank you.